Governor Jeff Landry and allies are working to build support for major changes to Louisiana's tax structure. He claims the changes will increase take-home pay for everyone in the state while also addressing a looming budget gap. I sat down with Revenue Secretary Richard Nelson to dig deeper into the proposals. Richard, thank you so much for being here. I know that there's a lot going on right now, so I appreciate you being here to talk with us today.
Thanks for having me.
A lot of buzz around a special session. Talk to us a little bit about the plans and the overall goal for that.
The special session will be focused mostly on tax reform. Obviously, I'm the Revenue Secretary. I deal in taxes every day. I know it's most people's favorite topic, favorite thing to talk about. But really, the idea is to fix two problems. One is the state is looking at a short-term fiscal cliff of hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to roll off next year when some temporary taxes we had in place for the last 7 years roll off. And so we're trying to address that problem. And then there's also the long-term competitiveness of the state. I mean, we've seen significant out-migration. People are leaving, kids are leaving to go get better jobs everywhere else. And so we're trying to reverse that trend and try to keep our best and brightest here in Louisiana and actually grow the state.
So talk to us about your plans for that. Now, I know you said that tax reform. What are your plans within tax reform?
Really, we're trying to make a system that is simple, flat, or simple, low, and fair, right? That's how we want our tax system to be structured. Sure. And when we look at states that are really succeeding, our southern states around us that are really growing, and we're seeing the businesses and people move there, those are the structures that they either have in place or they're moving toward, is where those taxes are low, simple, and fair. And that's, I would say, the opposite of Louisiana. We have very high rates generally. Sure. They're very complicated.
A lot of things come to mind, when you mentioned the state tax on luxury services. What does that look like?
So in order to provide for this income tax cut and stabilize the budget, we're looking at expanding the sales tax base to include some other services than what we do right now. Some of those are dog grooming, landscaping, lobbying, actually, too. So it's trying to say the economy has moved in, a different direction. It used to be, everybody would go to the general store and buy their wagon wheel. Well, now we spend more money on services. And so what we're trying to do is capture some of those transactions and then use that money to reduce the income tax rate for everybody else.
A lot of these luxury service, like dog grooming, it's small businesses. So what does that look like for the small business owner?
Sure. So, all the every small business, every snowball stand has to remit sales tax right now, right? And so if you're a dog groomer and you sell shampoo or, a brush or something, you have to submit sales tax on that as well. And so what we've looked at is, can we try and find some services where there's also that component where some part of it's already taxable, because that kind of simplifies the process.
Let's circle back a little bit and let's talk about how some of the changes or the tax credits or deductions will impact senior citizens on or fixed incomes.
Sure. So there's a couple of really key provisions of the whole plan that will really impact seniors. One is we're trying to eliminate the sales tax on prescription drugs.
Sure.
So currently we're one of the only states that tax prescription drugs. We don't do it at the state level, but the locals actually levy a tax on the prescription drugs. And so we'd like to get rid of that and basically replace that revenue for the locals with some of those services that they'll now be able to tax. The second part is the exemption. We're going to double the exemption on retirement income. So currently we have a $6,000 exemption for retirement income that seniors don't have to pay. So we're going to double that to $12,000. And then finally, we're going to try and double the standard deduction. As part of the constitutional amendment that hopefully the voters will be able to vote on in March, it would actually double the standard deduction for seniors, which would make it from our proposed $12,500 standard deduction for everybody, and it would double to $25,000. I think it's about a third of seniors now would not owe any income tax at all. Wow. So that's a significant change, but I think the best way and the best policy moving forward.
You did mention constitutional amendment, that there will be within that amendment maybe room for changes to allow lawmakers just a little bit more flexibility when it comes to preventing cuts from protected areas or non-protected areas like healthcare and higher education.
The legislature is really tied up by how the Constitution is structured and where all this money goes to dedicated funds, that they don't necessarily have the flexibility to address those. And so that's part of our goal in going into the Constitution and rewriting Article 7, which is the revenue and tax article, and changing that so they actually have more flexibility. They have more control over some of the money so they can spend it where they need to. And there's a couple other elements in that too, is that we would like to give the teachers a permanent pay raise using some of those funds that are locked up currently in the Constitution to pay off some retirement debt. So we help our retired teachers, and we help the current teachers in getting them all a permanent pay raise through that mechanism. And I hear all the time, I don't understand why Louisiana is always at the bottom. Like, why are we, I don't understand. We have all these things. And I like to say Louisiana has a royal flush of resources, right? I mean, we've got, the Mississippi River, the coast, oil and gas, tourism, culture, all of these things, agriculture that any state would kill for. We have like kind of every one of them. And yet we're always at the bottom of all these lists. And people ask, well, why is that? And I think the tax policy, as long as, I know people don't want to talk about it, and I know it's kind of a painful subject to bring up. But it really is what holds us back. And so if we can cast off basically 100 years of bad policy that we've used as we've had to compensate for that policy with all of these resources, right? Now, if we can use the fact that we have all these resources and have good policy, I don't think there's any state in the country that'll beat us. I think we'll be a top 10 state in everything and in every metric in a couple years if we can make these changes.
Thank you so much, Secretary Nelson, for being here with us today. It's been a brilliant time talking to you. It's an honor talking to you. And I'm looking forward to seeing the results of this special session, and I'm hopeful that the result would be a greater Louisiana for us all.
Thank you. Appreciate it.